Nonprofit and philanthropic leaders devote their lives to the service of others, but sometimes they need a little help. Kristine Michie has been deep in the work and the play of helping changemakers grow their impact for decades. So whether you're ladling soup at a local shelter or attending a UN peace conference, you need to find the balance between the heavy work and a light touch so you don't burn out. And Kristine believes play is at the center of that. Welcome to the Playful Podcast, bringing fun to the serious work of changing the world.
Everybody, welcome back to the Playful Podcast. We are bringing fun to the serious work of changing the world. And I'm so excited. Tracee Worley is on with me today. Welcome, Tracee. Tracee is the founder and creative director of Radical Futures, a design lab, a design studio, and I love what you have on your LinkedIn profile, which says you are midwifing the future, the matriarchal future. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, your playful spirit caught my eye on LinkedIn when I saw, now it's probably, maybe it's 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago or so, when you posted about the Seneca Falls convention and the 200th, the bicentennial. So folks who are either familiar or trying to remember that part of history about the Seneca Falls Convention, which is sort of chronicled or credited with being kind of the start of the suffragist movement and a gathering of women around women's rights in 1848. So the bicentennial will be 2048. And so when I saw that, it wasn't just like, it was like, do you want to register? Do you want to be a part of the planning committee? Like for something in 2048, which is far enough away for that to catch my eye, right? That's not the kind of thing people are usually planning that far in advance. 20 plus years. Tell me about the playfulness of that and the response you got to that and what that says about you and Radical Futures and what you're working on.
Yeah, well, I will tell you that what motivated me to do this project wasn't so playful. It really came from a place of rage. I feel like, the news headline for the past 60 days has been a lot of men behaving badly.
Yeah.
And I was just feeling like I need to do something. I need to channel this anger that I'm feeling like into my hands. And in January, I watched an episode of a very wonderful PBS series called Rematriated Voices. And it brings together Haudenosaunee Indigenous elders to talk about the influence that they had on the American democracy. So, the founding fathers modeled our government after parts of their government. And one of the episodes was about the comparing the Haudenosaunee origin story, creation story, where they have a sky mother, where they're, divine that created the world is a woman, which makes sense as women give life, and compared that to Eve in the Christian Bible, where, a man gives birth to creation. And it's a conversation between Louise Hearn, who is the clan mother of the Mohawk, and Sally Roche Wagner, who is no longer living now, but she is a historian, and she had written a book about, or probably a couple of books about how the Haudenosaunee had influenced the original Seneca Falls Convention in 1848, because those women, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and others, they lived a few miles down the road from, in Haudenosaunee territory. And they saw that these women were owning property, leading in their homes. Yes. They could leave their husband if their husband was, doing bad things. And they were very, very influenced and inspired by what they saw with, in the Haudenosaunee territory. And I felt motivated. I was like, okay, I think this is what I want to play around with. Like, in 1848, it was extremely radical for women to say, we should have the right to vote. And I sort of just asked myself, what would be a similar radical ask or demand at the 200th year anniversary? And I just kind of focused it on governance. Um,
Yeah.
because the exciting thing about the Haudenosaunee is in their Great Law of Peace, they have encoded um, matriarchy and matrilineal rule into their documents. And I just kind of wondered, like, well, that feels very radical, you know? It's one of those things that if
Yeah.
I ask myself, is that really going to happen? It seems like it's probably not feasible. And that's how I know I'm like, okay, now I'm
Mm.
working in speculative
Now you're onto
territory
something.
because,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I put together a program of 10 speakers. Four of them are people that I just made up. I imagine they are teenagers or little girls today in 2026. And then the other six are women that we would all recognize today. They are leading today. And I just sort of show some of the things that they will do in the next 22 years. So it is a much different
Can
future.
I open up the
Yeah,
packet?
please
Okay.
do. Please do.
So this feels just like what you get when you've signed up for a conference, right? You
Mm-hmm.
send register, you send your money, you do whatever you need to do, and then your materials come. And so those who are watching on YouTube, you're going to see it. So I'm holding up the Seneca Falls Convention brochure, July 18th to 19th, 2048. And oh my God, I even got my badge.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. So you guys, you know the badge, right? You know, there's the thing with the you put around your neck that's kind of like a kind of sort of a cloth, and this is clipped on, and like oh my God. So and then as you're describing, we've got the speakers listed here, and
Mm-hmm.
Secretary Deb Haaland, right? So there's someone we all
Mm-hmm.
know, right, who is alive today and would be there then. Dr. Zora Alvarez King, Chief Engineer, Department of Civic Infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
That's a new thing, right?
That would be a new
That's
thing. Yeah.
that's a new thing. So you folks, that would be a department in the government, right? Governance, Department of
Mm-hmm.
Civic Infrastructure. Then Senator Sarah McBride, President pro tempore of the US Senate when we became the majority. Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Okay, so imagining the majority of more than 50 of the senators are women. Is
Well,
that
not so much. Her speech is more about some of the changes that she has made legislatively to repair all of the MAG years and what they undid with LGBTQIA
yes,
rights.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Okay, so and then it goes on. Ketanji Brown Jackson is there, and then other people that you have imagined. It's so fantastic. So, and then I also signed up for. Then you have through Radical Futures, your design firm. You have
Mm-hmm.
opportunities for us to be a part of helping to create artifacts and other mementos from the convention, the lead up to the convention, in addition to centered around other activities.
Yeah, so when I just sort of like released on LinkedIn and told people, "Hey, I made something from the future." And the response was just like, I don't know, it was just extremely massive. I
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people were asking like, "Oh, how'd you do this?" or "How can I do this?" So I ended up hosting some workshops. I'm still actually doing them where we will make artifacts from a matriarchal future. And it doesn't necessarily have to be connected to Seneca Falls 2048. You could go wherever you want into the future um, and make a physical artifact from that future and sort of bring it back to the present. And it's been amazing. I mean, it's one thing to sort of like do this by yourself in your house with your one little brain and your
Yeah.
desires, but doing this in community with others has been incredible. I was just thinking this morning about there was a woman in a recent workshop who made, I forget what she called it, but basically in the future she was imagining that um, there would be bank accounts that would sort of rotate through the community. So one, and it would
Mm.
change every 30 days. So you would be assigned a bank account, and maybe one month there's $500 in there. Like there'll be enough to live.
Yes, yes.
Uh, but then the next month it could be 5,000. And then the next month it could be 5 million. And then the next month it could be 500 million. and I thought that that was super interesting, as a way to be provocative about
Mm,
how matriarchy is not about accumulating wealth, that it's about
mm,
keeping,
yeah, yes,
wealth and resources in flow. And that's just
yes,
something I would have never thought of. So it's
yeah.
amazing to come together in community and discover some of the other things that people are thinking about and wanting to see in the future. It makes me very hopeful.
Yeah. It is since I met you through that post and then our conversation since and my attending one of the workshops and then spending time with your materials getting ready for today, I must say my spirits are lifted. I am everything is feeling just a little lighter and
Mm,
it has been sustaining. And I
hmm
was sharing with my daughter who works for me earlier today about getting ready that I was going to be seeing you later in the day, and if I'm going to find out from you how to sign her up and give her the gift of the letters from the future that I signed up for.
hmm
um, I was reading her some of it, and she has her brand new baby, who's 4 months old, in her lap as we're
mm.
talking. And she's got a cat and a laptop, and we're zooming, and a baby. And she just like got frozen in her tracks. And she said, and she had a question she wanted me to ask you, which is, she said,
hmm
so she was near like kind of profound, joyful tears at this prospect of this future. And she said, "Will you?" She goes, "I'm sure you're going to ask her this, but will you ask her?" So here it is. She said, "How does she keep her spirits up?
I love
How do
this
you,
question. Yeah.
yeah, like, so how
Well,
does, because, yeah, go ahead.
as I mentioned, this all kind of started from a dark place where my
Yeah.
spirits were severely down. But something that I will come back to is, there's the imagination part of it, but there are also signals that I am following in the present that are leading me to be optimistic and to um, think that it could be feasible that in 22 years we might be in a better place. So I will share some of those signals. One is by 2035, women in the United States are going to be the largest holders of wealth, and that's coming from sort of two places. Um, you know, Women, Gen Xers, millennials inheriting money from their boomer parents that will be passing away over the next 10 to 15 years, um, as well as from their spouses, because women tend to outlive their spouses. Um, and that is very exciting to, I'm like, I don't know why there isn't more news headlines
Yeah.
about this, because
Yeah.
that's huge. If women
Yeah.
are holding more and more of the capital, making decisions about what gets funded, what gets invested, that is huge. There's already evidence to show that women invest resources much differently than men. Um, Even thinking about things like entertainment, the films that are going to be funded, or TV shows
Yes.
that are going to be funded. So I'm excited about that. Also, women are outpacing men in education. The birth rate is declining. There are a certain group of people for which that is an emergency, and I don't see it that way. I think that it means that women have a lot of leverage now on
Mm,
how they spend their lives. And so
hmm.
I'm excited by all of this. And I also understand why it is a time where people feel very afraid and worried, because if we look at what MAGA is doing, what conservative governments around the world are doing, they are also very aware that women are gaining this kind of leverage and they want to undo that. So,
Yeah.
if you look at Project 2025, they have a whole plan for saving the family. And, it includes all kinds of policies and legislation that try to incentivize women to have babies younger, to not go get educated. So they are very aware. That makes me excited. I'm like, oh, they
Uh,
know that,
yes. Yeah.
things are changing, and they're going to do what they're going to do to try and stop it. So I'm optimistic, but cautiously. Um,
Yeah.
because I think it also means we cannot get complacent, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
We actually have to pay attention to what these policies are calling for, and, we need to be active.
Yeah. So many things come to mind. I think I might have said this to you when we had the prep call. I know I've said it on the podcast before. Um, Project 2025 is a very imaginative document. I don't think
Hmm.
when they sat around and came up with that, they held themselves back and said, "Oh, well, that's not realistic. No one will ever go for that." They're like, "What the hell? We're doing it. We're doing this. We're doing this. We're getting." I mean, the first time I heard about getting rid of the Department of Education, I'm like, "No, they can't do that. They did it. I mean, they're just like
Right.
they're doing whatever the hell they want." So I have always thought, can we match that with our moral imagination? Right? Why don't we
Absolutely.
be as imaginative? And that's what I'm getting from you. And I got to say, when I was reading, so folks, listeners, the other thing that comes out of Tracee's firm is something called Letters from the Future. And I received one, and it's dated October 28th, 2089. And it's a 2-page typed letter on this glorious, tactile, thick brown paper. It came with this incense, and when I opened it, I could smell it. And I kept it on my nightstand. So last night, in the middle of the night when I woke up, I would smell it. And it references in here all these imaginative things of a bright, beautiful future. And it made passing reference to the things you just mentioned, these actual facts in current day.
Hmm.
And I got to
Hmm.
tell you, Tracee, as I read it, and I was hoping and I was hoping, I was like, oh my God, would this ever happen? And then you gave me a grounding of a statistic from today. I had the same feeling. It's like, oh, there's some evidence that this is, if we decide to, on its way, right? That some of
Yeah.
these things are on their way.
Yeah.
So I,
And
okay.
a lot of what I do with either design fiction or speculative fiction, like the letter, it is
Yeah.
taking a, small kernel of a signal that exists today. And I ask myself, well, what if? Like, what if
Yeah.
this goes right?
Yeah.
What will it look like?
Yeah.
And that is what keeps me optimistic. And it just reminds me that no future is already written. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
up to us at any given moment to
Yes.
decide this is the dream that we want to move towards. Um, so yeah, I am super optimistic. And a lot of the signals that I've been tracking make me feel like even with um, things like Project 2025, I don't think they can stop this. Like the
Mhm.
odds are just in our favor.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
numbers are in our favor. Um, do I think things could get like really dark? Yes, I think they already are. I think we're seeing, the headlines even as we speak.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's important for women to remember why it is getting dark, because they want to take us
Yes.
back,
Yes. Yes.
centuries, and
Right.
we're not going back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the Ruha Benjamin's book, there was I'm not going to quote it exactly, but something like um, that she was referencing that, like, look to see who's got the power to actualize their imagination and those
Yeah.
with the resources, right? So I was, thinking, so like the tech bros, like that whole world, right? Like,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know, so I don't know when any of us can remember if the first time we heard about like a driverless car, right? So sometime in the
Yeah.
last 5 or 10 years, we each heard about that for the first time. I'm like, oh, I don't know, that sounds a little crazy. And then I
Hmm.
saw the first one, and I was like, oh. And then I rode in one. I'm like, oh. And then I was in San Francisco or Phoenix or Santa Monica, and they were everywhere. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess that's a thing now. So that
Yeah.
was somebody's brainstorm, imagination, audacious idea, and now they're just, as is always the case, everything, you remind us of this when you post a lot, like everything was once somebody's idea, imagination, or
Hmm.
dream that has
Hmm.
ever happened.
Hmm.
So why not us? Why
Absolutely.
not now?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, the tech bros, I think that's a perfect example. They are imagining futures all of the time, and they have a lot of resources to actualize their imaginations.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, yeah, I think as a consumer or just as a citizen, it feels like how can I stop this? I just kind of,
Right.
I'm taking the Uber or I'm getting in the Waymo,
Right.
and it is convenient, so yeah, why not? Um, and I don't know, I don't want to discount how, I understand that yes, it does take resources to make your imagination material, but imagination for me is also a form of resistance. It is a way for me to claim a seat at the table where the future is getting made.
Yeah.
And we all have the ability to
Yeah.
do that. You don't need a degree, you don't need money. Like we all have an imagination. And, I think I would love to see a future where we can collectively come together to do that with one another.
Yeah. I I had this thought, kind of it feels like it stems from what we were just talking about. Um, that what do you think about this idea that white men and black women have been the most imaginative?
Mm,
Maybe I should make it a superlative, but are particularly imaginative. I would say white men because they're like, well, I've got all the resources, so whatever I imagine, if it's actually possible, I can do it. Black women, for just the opposite reason, without all the
hmm
power, without all the resources, have been imaginative forever as a mechanism to survive, thrive, and grow the future that they wanted to see. Is there
hmm
anything to that?
Mm. I have never thought of it like that, but I will say I feel like it's two sides of the same coin. I think with power comes imagination, and with powerlessness comes imagination. I would say for Black people in general,
Yeah,
imagination has been a form of survival.
yeah,
When you are trying to survive horrific conditions, when you are not a full citizen,
mm,
um, when, your very body is made illegal, then yeah, imagination is a way to project yourself into a future. Because if you
yes,
get to the point where you cannot see the future, like that's death. That is
yeah,
that is not a life. And yes, I think that um, it's the reason why, so many people love the art and culture that originates with Black people, because it is
yeah,
it is imagining
mm, mm,
ourselves into a
mm,
future that is, one that is liberated and one that is
yeah.
free. And yes, I mean, for sure, I do think Black women have been particularly magical at
Mm,
holding those kind of imaginations. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you for that. I want to talk about capital.
hmm
I was really so I've been thinking about capital and currency and the term currency, and I've been thinking about like so what's the like what currencies I would say there's currency being created right now as we're having this conversation. You and I are experiencing some exchange of joy and understanding and imagining and all that. When this goes live and people are listening to it later, they're going to have there's an exchange there.
hmm
Now, we still currently have a system where it's dollars in the US, right? It's like there's a
hmm
cap, we spend money on things in exchange. Um, but so I'm interested in how you're operating in two forms of currency because I love the fact that you charge for the gift of your work on your webinars and things like that. I loved that. I think often we give our stuff away in the kind of the social goods sector. So, and that was a dollar exchange in the current currency, even though what I was
hmm
receiving was in the other currency
hmm
in the feelings that I had. Tell me how you navigate those two kind of if that's a concept that resonates, those kind of the two kinds of
hmm
capital or currency.
Mm. I mean, I love this question. I think in my observation with myself and with so many other women, um, value exchange is something we struggle with tremendously. I think oftentimes women are always underselling themselves,
Yeah.
undercutting themselves. We do that. There is so much in this world that is designed to extract labor out of us for the
Mm.
free. Um, And, there were years where I feel like I was wandering around that very dark forest of, not valuing my own labor. I do charge for the workshops. I do it on a sliding scale because I'd like to make sure that, people who are unemployed or um, BIPOC, marginalized in any way, artists, people who are movement workers can afford it at a, lower price point than someone who is more resourced. And,
Yeah.
it has been amazing to see people be honest about that when
Yes.
they
Yeah.
register
Yeah.
because it's optional. I don't make you fill out an application. Um, but I feel like in a matriarchy, that's how things should work, right? That
Yeah.
like if
Yes.
you are more resourced, you should help somebody else attend and as well as
Yeah.
yourself. But in the workshop itself, yeah, I think that I'm holding space for people to get really deep. Um, the first part of the workshop is about you connecting to the forces, whether it's historical or cultural, that have shaped your matriarchal imagination. And, people have told me that they've cried, they've laughed, they've realized things that they've never realized before. And I love that because I feel like before you actually start making an artifact, you should touch a soft place in yourself.
Mm.
And yeah, so the workshop is designed to help you touch that place before you then go and start making it. It just makes the artifacts like so much better. Um, so yes, even though I am charging, I hope that it doesn't feel transactional, that what
Mm.
you're getting out of it is something that is spiritual, emotional, um, and that contributes to everyone's respective like
Yeah.
work towards imagining a better future. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I felt that way. Absolutely. I felt it was an honoring of what was, and it was an honoring of what I was anticipating was going to happen.
Hmm.
When I had the chance to do that. Let's, if you would go get your ice cream,
Sure.
and we'll have the next part of the conversation while we enjoy that.
Okay.
Okay, so
All right.
fantastic. So, folks, you may know if you're a fan and have listened before. Taharka Brothers is our ice cream sponsor. They are a social enterprise, employee-owned ice cream company based in Baltimore, Maryland. They ship nationwide. I will have Tracee tell you what that's like when this ice cream arrives on your doorstep. And by the way, it is exceptionally good. I mean, everyone loves kind of any ice cream is good, but some ice cream is better than others, and this ice cream is amazing. Taharka Brothers has been a sponsor of the podcast for almost all of our 3 years, and has gifted our guests with these pints of ice cream that show up. So, Tracee, now you're a design person. I wonder if you liked that hot pink box that showed up.
Yes. First of all, this is every pint that you sent me is very, very good. It's like, I don't know, it's like cake mixed with ice cream,
Mm,
like a dessert mixed with ice cream.
mm,
Very,
mhm.
very good. I'm eating right
It's
now
so good.
the
Yeah,
honey
which one are you
graham.
having? That's the
Honey
number
graham.
one favorite from all 3 years of the podcast.
Mm, very good. Thank you so
And
much for
and it stays
sending
like
this.
crunchy. Somehow the graham cracker stays crunchy even in the ice cream,
Exactly.
right?
That's what I mean. They're mixing other things into the ice cream, and it's heavenly.
So honey graham is what Tracy's having. And I'm having cookie dough, which we're familiar, but again, exceptionally good. It's the ice cream is brown sugar ice cream, and then it says gobs of cookie dough, which I would say yes, gobs, like not just little chunks, like gobs, big old chunks. All right, so Tracee, when we eat ice cream, I like to ask, what's the scoop on how you came to care? So something about kind of like your impact origin story. When
Mm,
do you remember early inklings that you felt you had a role to play bigger than just, what would be your family or the people on your block kind of thing? Like you had a bigger role in the world to play.
okay. That's such a good question. Well, you know, as I've been doing these workshops, I have been remembering how even as a little girl, I was always very attuned to injustice when it came to sexism.
Mm.
I love sports, and I remember I was probably like in third or fourth grade, and the boys wouldn't let me like play football on the yard with them.
Mm.
So I recruited some female friends, and we got chairs from the classroom, just sat in the middle of the field, and were like, well, nobody's gonna play. And that is very much that is me.
So
Yeah.
good.
So I don't know. I don't know where that comes from, but I have always been sensitive to any messages that like I can't do a thing because I'm a girl, or and I think that I have definitely been resisting that all of my life. Um, but I don't know, maybe it wasn't until undergrad where I really started to become a lot more aware of how deep, injustice runs globally, nationally in my neighborhood. I majored in African American studies, and I definitely like, left college as an undergrad feeling like, well, there's a lot to do. Um,
Mm.
I my first job out of undergrad was teaching high school.
Mm.
I joined the New York City Teaching Fellows. It's sort of like Teach for America, but it was specifically for New York. And it's one of those programs that places freshly graduated undergrads in some of the highest need schools.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I think that's where I started to really see um, what inequality it looks like, because
Mhm.
I was placed in a neighborhood in Brooklyn where, I think the graduation rate was around 25, 28% for high school. Um, and you start to see, what poverty does to a neighborhood, what it does to a community. Um, and that just put me on a path to,
Yeah.
you know, doing the things that I felt were interesting to try and at least engage with some
Yeah.
of those inequities. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you went on, you got two master's degrees, one at NYU, one at Columbia, right? If I recall.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then and I don't know how soon, but the idea of working in design around spaces and places for people to learn was, you worked at an architectural firm, I guess would be the way to describe it, that had as its mission schools and places of learning.
Yeah.
Did that, I'm sure you took some of what you saw about what the physical environment was like in the schools that you were teaching in that informed some of that. What was that like?
Yeah. I reflecting on my career, like while all of this ping-ponging around and doing different things was happening, I didn't feel like I was focused.
Mm.
Um, but when I look back on it from today, I realize that
Hmm.
I've been very much attracted to roles that allow me to like reimagine a very broken system.
Mm. Mm.
Um, so yes, I went back to school, and I at the time, and even still to this day, am very interested in the design of learning environments, or learning experiences. And after completing that program, I worked at an architecture firm that designed schools, and their particular POV was in the future. They were saying that, listen, like, these um, factory, industrial type school buildings where kids are all sitting in rows, that is so much out of alignment with all kinds of progressive philosophies around teaching and learning. And if I'm in an environment like that where somebody's like, you know, we're trying to imagine something even, more new, more something new, something that is bringing us into deeper alignment with what we actually value. I've always been very excited to do stuff like that. So the thread between all of those things has really been reimagining um, something that's very difficult to reimagine because we've invested so many resources and people just accept that, well, this is how it is.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
so yeah, I've done a lot of work like that.
Yeah, when I was looking through your, kind of your CV, so to speak, often when I'm looking at a guest, that for a guest, I will notice like they were doing this one thing and then they did something totally different. But with you, it did feel all like, oh, that makes sense, that makes sense, that makes sense. And I met you at this point, and it was almost kind of like lots of things for us. If you look back, it all makes sense, when we arrived at the new place. So with Radical Futures, I'd love you to be able to tell the audience a little bit about how they can engage. We've talked about the webinars and things you're doing online,
Mhm.
this imagination workshops and things like that. It sounds like you also, did I get that you also can like embed yourself in an organization and bring a futurist matriarchal mindset to a group of people who are working on something together? Did I get that
Yeah.
right when I was looking at your materials? Yeah.
hmm Yes. So I have a few offerings. I would say the mainly I'm doing consulting with organizations and communities. Um, I do a lot of sort of like future of workshops. And what comes after the of is a topic that is important to you. So if you're working on housing, I can do a future of housing workshop, um, belonging, learning, work, um, future of AI. Those have been pretty popular where, they either want to gather their own staff or the audience that they work with to ask the question, well, what is the future of this thing?
Yeah.
Um, I also do research around the future. So I just recently was commissioned to help an organization think through the future of sheriffs,
Whoa.
which is super interesting. It's, sort of like a law enforcement slash abolition type of project.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and then, yes, I also offer futurists in residence. So, for some organizations, they're kind of interested in doing more deep work and um, they want their staff to learn futures literacy. How is it that you bring signals from the future to try and predict what might happen 50 years from now? And I think the best way to do that is to kind of like have me embed on your team so I can learn more about your business or your organization and yeah, just kind of bring more of the futures literacy to more people on staff so that when I'm gone, that muscle continues.
Man, it sounds like I should come in right after you because my firm, Impactful, we do this play consulting, right? We do retreat
hmm
facilitation called Provocative Joy. So, like, if they've already been warmed up with this like futurist literacy, right, and a future and imaginative mindset, a great time to start playing. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because often during the conversation, I'll say like, now let's talk about play. But to me, imagination is clearly a form of play. And so I feel like
hmm
we've been talking about it the whole time. But anything else you might tease out for our understanding about how play fits into imagination, how imagination fuels play, or how they are, I don't know if they're siblings or cousins or offspring of
Mm.
each other, but they feel very connected.
Yes, I definitely think that they are connected, but they are a little bit different. I think that the play helps to open up imagination. There's something very subversive about play, especially when you're doing it as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at any child under the age of 8, play comes like supernaturally to them. They're making up stuff, making up stories, deciding that, this little bookshelf right here is actually a castle. And then,
Right.
somewhere around 9 or 10, we start getting the messages that like, that's what little kids do. You're not supposed to be doing that. So for an adult to play, it is a very subversive act. Like, um, play, I think, is a form of interacting that shuts off the fear response so
Mm.
that imagination can actually happen. When you're playing, usually your nervous system understands that the stakes are very low. You could say a
Hmm.
weird thing, you could just draw, an ugly picture or pitch a very ridiculous idea and nothing bad is going to happen. And once your body believes that, I think that's when your mind opens. So maybe play is like the precursor to
Mm.
imagination.
Yes, yes. And I think, um, kids today seems like they don't necessarily have to tap into their imagination as much to play because a lot of things are kind of conjurable on a device, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like, turn the bookcase into a castle is a different kind of tactile experience. So I think making sure we're
Hmm.
kind of watching our kids and watching each other and looking for those opportunities. Have you found any, or do you ever feel that you're getting any resistance around, well, Tracee, this is great talking about 2048 and 2089, but like, what do you guys, what about next week? What about the
Yeah.
elections? What about the stuff? How are you navigating that tension between the imagined future and the moment?
Every time I do work like this, I'm gonna get that kind of sentiment, and I'm super sensitive to it because I can remember moments that I was that person.
Mm,
Someone is coming into my job, my workplace, and telling me that we're gonna do something imaginative or playful, and my body is stuck in the energy of emergency or urgency,
mm, mhm,
and it feels almost disrespectful. I did some work in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the Greenwood neighborhood. This is the neighborhood that was
mm,
burned down in 1921 in the race massacre. And it was imagination work. And I can tell you that I had to spend several weeks getting to know the community,
mm,
doing things that weren't playful and imaginative quite yet, because play often, the precursor to play is trust.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
And,
nice.
I'm also very like, this is a Black community. There were elders in this group. And I'm like, people are going to hate me if I come in here and just like tell
Mm,
them we're going to imagine a better future when, there was an active state Supreme Court case that was
mm,
working to deny the last living survivors of that massacre
mm,
their reparations. So I'm always sensitive to what needs to be done first before we can play. And some
yes.
topics are so heavy, or there is active harm working in that community, that you as the advocacy for player imagination need to build some rapport before you start doing that imagination work. And in that case, it was like 4 to 5 weeks before we
Mm,
actually did any playing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, I love that reminder about trust preceding play. And then we're
Hmm.
thinking maybe preceding imagination, or at least warming up the room for the
Yeah.
imagination that could come.
Yeah.
Well, this has been just so important and so hopeful, playful, imaginative, all of that good stuff. I'm really excited to be, for those who didn't know about your work yet, to now be aware of it and to check you out on, is it radicalfutures.com?
It's radicalfutures.studio.
Dot studio. Excellent.
Hmm.
Radical Futures, plural, dot studio. And then Tracee Worley, you'll see in the show notes. You can get to her LinkedIn and see her online. And I'm all about what you're doing. And I'm going to be finding out how I can give people these letters and artifacts and things like that so more and more people know about it. And I'm just so glad we got to spend this time together. Thank you so much. And thanks
Thank
for
you.
bringing fun, like we say, bringing fun to the serious work of changing the world.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to the Playful Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review it on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you know of a leader or organization that's doing good in the world and you'd love to help us help them amplify their message, I would love to have them on the show. Go to the show notes and click there, or go to impactfulinc.com/contact. And that's impactful with 2 L's, inc.com/contact. And let us know who you're thinking about. Can't wait to see you next time.